other two poets. Well, you don't need any warming up now because they've already done that work for us and set us on the right tone for this evening. Welcome to you all. I met John only this evening, so I won't take the liberty of introducing him because I'm sure his work will do that for himself. But I should just say, I know Ravi and Sudeep both a very long time, and to me they're like very big presences in my life. Sudeep is also perhaps my closest neighbor in Indian literature, and if you go to his house, I mean, some people go for the cooking, which is really excellent, but he also has the best poetry library I've ever seen, and when you go there, it's like suddenly having, you know, we don't see it very often these days, like suddenly being inside a sea of verse, and you like run down different channels, different rooms, and the bookcases, everything like set aside by country, by form, and you can spend many magical hours there browsing. It's like a little like museum of poetry. So from that environment, like it's what his work emerges, and he's going to read from a new book today. Ravi, of course, is also a major international figure, and something common to them both is that, in a way, there are many faces. They're both traditional and experimental, and they're not just also foundational in the sense that they're very large figures in Indian verse, but and American verse, but also they're germinal in the sense that they've also anthologized other poets and produced major anthologies of Indian and world literature. And so there are thousands of people who don't just read them, but they also read to their taste, if you know what I mean. There are many people who sort of follow their tracks in poetry. So one of Ravi's most interesting projects, which is done in collaboration with another very good Indian poet, Priya Sarukai Chapriya, is out this week from Zuban, and some copies are there. It's a translation of the 9th century devotional Tamil poet Andal and her poems about Vishnu, and her poems of submission to Vishnu and of seeing nothing but Vishnu in the world and being married to this god. What is most interesting about this is that we all have some sense of what translation means, and this is a book that sort of explodes all of that because it doesn't have the poets taking turns to translate the same corpus of verse, but it has them both translating the same poems very differently and to a different rhythm, and sometimes with completely different words. And of course, since you all read poetry, with very different line measures and stanzas. So in a way, they are asking the question: is there anything like absolute fidelity in translation? Can we have the naivete of saying? We have this 9th century poet from a completely different cultural universe and a completely different language, and can we stick to the fiction that, you know, somebody can translate that and be like exactly what Andal was like in the 9th century or whatever. And I think this is such a unique idea, and they have a long introduction when they explain this. I think this is a very necessary sort of current in our time, because in Indian literature, you know, so much of our work, even as Indian readers, we have no hope of knowing all our languages. We read in translation, and to have a kind of naivete about translation, to always feel that there's something's not faithful, sometimes completely misunderstands what translation is all about. It's about passing on energy and the excitement of a work through yourself and leaving your own trace there, which I think Ravi does very powerfully here. So he's going to read from, not just from Andal, but from his other work, and give us a whole range of what he's done, so that maybe after the end of 15 minutes, we'll all know who Ravi Shankar is, if you've never known him at all. Ravi.
Thank you so much, Sandrahas, for that wonderful introduction. And indeed, what I want to begin with is this new translation of Andal. My publisher Urvashi is in the back of Zuban Books, and I feel very happy to have had the chance to work with her. I think that the book is really beautifully produced. And yes, it was quite a labor of love that took place over many years. We had both Priya and I, in the course of our life, pauses where we couldn't work on it, and it's true that we both had our own versions of Andal. And so while we were working with the Tamil versions, she spoke to us very differently, and we decided that we would include that difference. And so I think that's what's perhaps a little different about this book, is that we have both versions included in many instances. And you know, she was, of course, the only female Alvar saint of the 12 saints. Amazing that much of this work was composed in her teenage years in 9th century India. And just to give you a taste of the difference between Priya and I thought I would read just the very beginning of Priya's translation of the Tirupuvai, and then I'll read my version so you can hear it. Now, the Tirupavai is perhaps the work of hers that you most know because it's still recited at weddings in Tamil Nadu today. And we've translated that as well as her other more arcane body of work, which is the Nachiyar Turmalai. But this is, so I'll start with Priya's Tirupavai, and then I'll give you mine. So this is Priya Chabrio, can't be here, she sends her regards. Bejeweled gopi girls, each a jewel, enhance your sparkle by bathing in his luminescence, full as the moon against indigo skies. Lance bright his eyes, bright his lance that glides through fear. Bathe in the river of devotion of the Lion Club, Yashudhara's joy, our single star. His home is here, where we gather. The time is now, this Margali month. Come, pledge your life to radiance. People of this world, we sing blessings on all. Cold the sleek dawn river into which we plunge, forsaking the tongue's pleasure in milk and ghee, for our taste is only for him, who lulls the cosmic ocean's bubbling stars. We forsake flowers for his fragrance, forsake coal and adornment to serve others. We swear ourselves to seeking grace.